Cardinals are you going to keep us updated on the score? 3-2. Oh, 3-2. Any motion to approve the agenda?
Moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. The motion to approve the Board of Education meeting minutes for September 26, 2019.
Move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye. All those in favor say aye. Abstaining. She's one person.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Any abstentions? All right. We good. All right. We next are patron comments. We do not have any patron comments, so we move on to superintendent and board comments. So we will start with our superintendent, Dr. Mark Miles.
Thank you very much. So to begin, some of you may have noticed the two lifelong learners we had out in front of the annex on the way in. You've also probably noticed the scarecrow neighbors setting up residence all over Eureka. So the Eureka Scarecrow Festival will be in full swing for the month of October, and all of the Rockwood facilities in Eureka, Blevins, Eureka, and Geggy Elementary Schools, the Eureka Early Childhood Center, Eureka High School, the Individualized Learning Center, the Administrative Center, and the Administrative Annex are all joining in on the fun. There seems to be a bit of a competition between the Administrative Center and the Annex, but I'm hopeful that the theme of the Administrative Center being a Snow Day Central Scarecrow will bring in a lot of student interest and staff member interest. So we'll see. So in essence, we are so thrilled to participate in this cherished annual tradition. So more to come on voting at the end of October, but go Snow Day Central. Last Friday, Dr. Kinder, I also had the opportunity to participate in the Rockwood Summit Homecoming Parade photo with me and Dr. Emily McCowan, the principal at Rockwood Summit. We started at Rockwood South Middle School, ended at Rockwood Summit High School football stadium, where the Falcons went on to beat their homecoming opponent, Parkway West. Really a nice turnout from the Fenton community. It was very impressive. So enjoyed seeing all the community members there, and of course making the trip with Dr. McCowan and all of the spirit, the enthusiasm for the parade. It was a little warm, but everyone was involved from Summit, Rockwood South Middle, Bowles, Kellison, Stanton, Utah Valley Elementary Schools. Appreciate all the work that students and staff put into that event. So can't wait for next year's parade.
I did file a lawsuit against you because you endangered that poor Dr. McCowan and had her sit up on the back of the convertible without a seat belt. You need to know that.
I
don't care about you,
was
but
dismissed this afternoon, Dr. Kinder.
He's
Okay,
bitter.
thank you.
He's bitter because
Yeah.
last year he got to drive Dr. Emily McCown.
I'm
and
still
this year
mad about
he didn't
that.
get to, so that's what's going on. All right, let's move
Emily's
on.
So
daughter.
each spring,
Let's move
in
on past that.
academic news, each spring the National Merit Scholarship Corporation offers more than $31 million in scholarship assistance to 7,600 high school seniors around the nation who exhibit outstanding academic testing and extracurricular credentials. Of the more than 1.5 million juniors who take the preliminary SAT, National Merit Scholarship qualifying test, approximately 16,000 are chosen as National Merit Scholarship finalists, semifinalists. This year, 47 of those semifinalists come from the Rockwood School District, representing all 4 high schools. Finalists will be named in February, and the National Merit Scholarships will be awarded later in the spring. We want to congratulate all of these recipients for their exemplary, hardworking, and well-rounded work throughout their entire academic careers. So congratulations to those 47 students. I've often said that academics, arts, and athletics provide a complete educational experience, and this group of Rockwood Valley Middle School students seem to have taken the arts to heart and to a new level. Opening Night Productions' fall play, Once Upon a Tower, features 94 students in onstage and backstage roles. So, according to my calculations, for every 8 students at the school, 1 is participating in this fine production. Opening Night Productions will perform Once Upon a Tower at 7 p.m. on November 21st and 22nd on the stage in the Rockwood Valley Cafeteria. The students say they've cultivated a real family feel during their involvement with Valley's drama program, and the welcoming, inclusive spirit they exhibit gives life to the mantra by Principal Dr. Karen Hedrick, belong at Rockwood Valley Middle School. It's great to see, and I can't wait to see that production. Finally, speaking of our principals, October is National Principals Month. It's a time to celebrate the administrative teams at each of our schools and the work they do each day to ensure that our children enjoy a top quality Rockwood education. So whether it's students' current principals or one that left an impact on you when you went through school, I invite you this month to extend a note of appreciation, a kind telephone call, a hug, or a high five to one of your principals somewhere in your life or in one of your schools. They are certainly committed and dedicated to our students each and every day. So, October, National Principals Month. That is all I have this evening.
Board comments?
The opportunity to attend the MSBA conference and be our delegate, and it was a wonderful conference with some really good informative sessions of new legislative issues that are coming, and so it was a good experience. Thank you for letting me go.
Presenting. Anyone else? All good? All right. So moving right along, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
Move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, we have donations again tonight. We were just here last week, but we still have a whole bunch of new donations since last week. CCL PTO, other non-monetary, $1,645 for CCL students to use on the playground at recess, a gaga ball pit, or a playground at CCL. When it says non-monetary, they're putting it in. Is that right? Or they're purchasing it? They're not just giving money to the school, they're purchasing it. Okay. Lafayette High School, Lafayette High School Baseball Boosters Club, modification of facilities, $14,439 for baseball field improvements to allow for fewer rainouts and better playing conditions. It describes everything that they're wanting to do. Then they have an anonymous monetary $2,500 to help the coaches, help the athletes improve. A check will be used by the coaches to purchase the technology needed to help swimmers and divers improve their techniques. Rockwood Summit, high again. American Family Insurance Dreams Foundation, monetary $1,000. Provide support to improve, maintain the Summit football program. Donations to the football cornhole tournament fundraiser for the Summit football team program. And last is Utah Valley Elementary. Utah Valley PTO wins the prize with $25,929.50 to help students and staff at Utah Valley Elementary. PTO donations for the 2019-20 school year to help support the students and staff. Support will include, but not limited to, purchase of students' folders, field trip transportation, online reading subscription. Very good, great donations again.
Great. Thank you for always doing that, Dr. Kinder. Anything else in the consent agenda? All right, so the motion is to approve that consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. All right, moving on to agenda items. I need a motion to approve the proclamation designated October 14th through the 18th, 2019 as National School Lunch Week.
Move.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. So we're going to read the proclamation. Director Bays is going to read the proclamation because she likes lunch.
It's true. National School Lunch Week official proclamation. Whereas the National School Lunch Program has served our nation admirably for more than 70 years through advanced practices and nutrition education, and whereas the National School Lunch Program is dedicated to the health and well-being of our nation's children, and whereas the National School Lunch Program has been joined through the years by many other excellent child feeding programs, and there is evidence of continued need for nutrition education and awareness of the value of school nutrition programs. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Education of the Rockwood School District, do hereby proclaim the week of October 14 through 19 as National School Lunch Week, and I encourage all residents to become aware and concerned about their children's and their own nutrition habits in hope of achieving a more healthful citizenry for today and the future. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the Board of Education of the Rockwood School District to be affixed. Done at the Board of Education meeting this 3rd day of October in the year 2019.
Thank you very much. Good evening. This year's theme is School Lunch, What's on Your Playlist, and it spotlights how today's school cafeterias are serving healthy menu items that kids want to eat, which with increased choices and customization of their lunch. And then we emphasize healthy foods that are offered each day to our staff and students. School lunch offers students fruits and vegetables, whole grains, milk, and meets federal nutrition standards, limiting fat, calories, sodium in our lunches. National School Lunch Week helps us to educate parents and students about the benefits of our lunch program and the appealing variety that we offer to our kids. Next week, we're excited to promote National School Lunch Week and the benefits of our program. National School Lunch Program has been successful for 70 years now, so that's a great thing. Last year, we served 1.4 million students lunches in Rockwood School District alone. So students can enjoy the school lunch. From in elementary, it costs $2.65 to $2.80 for a school lunch. In secondary schools, it's $2.80 for $3.10. So where else can you buy a complete lunch with fruits, vegetables, and entree and milk at such a reasonable price? So students who maybe can't afford that can apply for free and reduced price meals, and this year we're excited to offer parents the opportunity to apply for the free and reduced program on our website. So as soon as a parent completes the application, we download those multiple times daily, and we can get them approved as quickly as possible. So we're able to help kids sooner and help families sooner with meal charges. Some of the things that we're doing an example of what we're doing to help with customization and choices in school lunch is we have a new high school menu this year. So we went to a static menu. So previously we changed the menu daily. This year we're sticking with the same menu every day and offering things that kids like. So they can customize in the deli line, they can customize in the salad on a salad bar, they can get some of their favorite items every day. And with the new schedule, it's great because they know where they can go get the lunch and not be in question and of what's for lunch. So we have an American line, a Mexican line, Asian, Italian, and a deli grab and go. So we're excited about those, and the kids seem to be very excited about those. We also still participate in farm-to-school activities. We highlight Missouri apples. We purchase produce from 3 Girls in a Tractor in Marthasville with watermelon and tomatoes, and the kids love the fresh watermelon. Then also our milk is local, of course. And then we're always trying to improve introduce kids to new items. This year, I think Jill had in the back for you some Mix Me frozen yogurt, which has live and active culture. So that's a frozen yogurt product that we're offering to our students as well. So give them some good bugs in their system. So some of the other things that we're doing in child nutrition is we're excited to have some students working for us. Last year we had a student from Lafayette join us in the kitchen as an employee and help us serve lunch. We're pretty short-staffed. So this year we're excited to have that student graduated, so we're excited to have another student join us at Lafayette and then one at Marquette as well. So the student at Marquette comes in before school begins, works for an hour, helping us refill items. So that's been a great benefit to us and hopefully the student as well. And we're also working with some students on disposable items versus real. So we opened Eureka Elementary and we started off with real silverware versus disposable. So that's been very successful there. Also, Paul and I met with a student last week from Eureka Senior who is very interested in making that progression to real. So I've invited him to attend one of our manager meetings to present his research on that. And our hope is to progress as the students graduate. So and we also had Wildwood Middle School contact this week. They're interested in transitioning from disposable to real silverware. So that's exciting. And you're welcome to stop by lunch anytime. We'd love to have you. I'd love to show you what we do in the cafeteria, or you can follow us on Twitter as well. So, any questions?
lunch is prepared in-house at each school or from a
Yes.
central kitchen?
In-house at each school.
Okay. And how much of it is processed and made fresh on site?
All of it's ready to cook at least. We do make pork roast we use raw pork roast that we cook overnight in our ovens, and raw turkey roast that we cook overnight in our ovens. Pizzas. This year we have a new program at Eureka Senior with pizzas, so we're making scratch pizzas at Eureka Senior. It's a smart mouth pizza, so that's a new program there we're trying out. So that's been very successful.
The kids have been,
Yes, very popular. So, and we have fresh fruits and veggies that are cut up in-house every day.
there's a balance between what's been processed and
Absolutely.
what's fresh on the,
Yeah.
on the plate.
We're short about 20 staff right now, so we do take advantage of convenience, heat and serve type things. But they're whole grain items and low sodium. So,
But I read an article this week. I don't know where it came from, but it talks about a lot of schools are going to much more vegan items, and that the pork producers and the beef cattle producers have targeted schools to try to see if they can change that. Have you had anybody contact you about, let's get with the beef and the hogs and get rid of the vegan stuff?
no.
Good.
No. I believe in balance and everything in moderation, so we do have vegan options for kids or vegetarian options, but we do still serve pork and definitely beef. So
Yeah, the
and
article
turkey.
said they were going to try to get vegan food out. They can't do it, but it's easy to read article.
It's a very beef, pork, turkey, chicken is a very nutrient dense product. So to replace that with vegan vegetable items is a lot of processing.
Good.
We offer enough vegetables and fresh fruits. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have sun butter, we have black bean burger every day, we have vegetables, we have a grilled cheese pretzel roll for vegetarians, not vegans, but so yes, there's
This semester, I've had the opportunity to make visits to several schools already, and if I'm there near the lunchtime, I'm always impressed with the smells coming out of the cafeteria. I'm drawn to the cafeteria, but when I've also walked around the lunchroom, I'm so impressed with all of the options our students have each and every day, which is truly impressive. There's the element of significant choice on the
Yes.
part of our students.
And the food looks great.
oh, thank you.
It looks so appetizing and so well done.
Appreciate it. They do a great job in the kitchens, and it's a great program. So
Keep us updated on the silverware
yes,
transition.
Yes.
Because that's intriguing to me. And
yes. Eureka Elementary has done really well with it. We haven't counted, so I don't know what the exact loss is yet, but it's been pretty good. The kids like to eat fancy, so they're fancy silverware. So.
What about the cost? Have you kind of looked at that?
I have,
Obviously, since, you know,
without the loss of, missing trash can kind of thing, it's actually cheaper to go with real versus disposable. So, assuming loss is within a reasonable amount, we should be okay. But if we're training them, they're learning this early, and then as LaSalle will begin next year, those kids will be used to it and know the routine and be in the habit of recovering the silverware before it hits the trash can. So
Very good.
About staff time as far as
it's a little
Cleaning.
time consuming, and
Yeah.
we'll see. Eureka Elementary is, of course, a fraction of what LaSalle will be, but LaSalle has already implemented a way to streamline returning their trays and things like that, and we have a really efficient manager, so I believe she'll work to become the most efficient she can be with her staff, so it shouldn't be too bad. Yes, absolutely, yes. We have dish machines in all of our schools.
Already there.
Yes,
Is that an additionally?
correct.
Okay, Carmen, here's the question of the day. Is a tomato a fruit or vegetable?
Yes, technically it's a fruit, but
So yeah, okay.
USDA it's considered a vegetable.
Okay, just asking.
response.
And on that note,
Yeah.
The motion is to approve the proclamation designating October 14th through the 18th as National School Lunch Week. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carmen.
All right, next we need a motion to postpone approval of policy 2870, administering medicines to students until the 10/17/2019 Board of Education meeting.
Move.
We have a motion and a second. Amy Weir, welcome.
Is everyone tonight? Good. I know you all have seen the PIN form, and several things in this policy were just a little outdated as far as, in the regulation, as far as documenting things in Infinite Campus versus on paper as it used to be done. So that's what initially started all this. But there's also, one of my big concerns was with medical marijuana on the horizon in our state. Just getting some verbiage in this policy to address that. So do you all have questions about that? I mean, I think our attorneys have done a pretty good job of addressing that issue, so.
I had sent a question earlier regarding a statement that's in the policy that we grant students the authority to possess and self-administer medicine, which brought me some concern, which you sent a very detailed response back. But so if you could walk through how we intend to address that.
So there is a current state statute that allows for students of any age to self-carry and administer medications that are generally considered emergency medications and potentially life-saving medications. We have always focused on that being albuterol for asthma episodes and epinephrine for anaphylactic episodes. So I don't think that marijuana would fall into what is considered an emergency medication. I say that without really knowing. As I mentioned in my email, I didn't go to law school. I went to nursing school. The only way I can see, you had mentioned the seizures, that there is some treatment for seizures with medical marijuana, and there's actually an FDA-approved drug that has the CBD oil in it, which is Epidiolex. So that is FDA approved. School nurses could administer that, but I believe it's a once a day, can be done at home medication, so it shouldn't come up unless there's an issue. It would be rare that we'd be asked to do that.
Statement following that is required by law also gives us some element of protection because it's a federal, marijuana is still an illegal drug.
Federally, yes. So nurses are subject to following the Missouri State Nurse Practice Act, which prohibits them from administering any medications that are illegal in your state or federally. So at this point, nurses would not be able to allow even medical marijuana with doctor's orders, parent permission, all of that. And I don't think that students would be allowed to carry it because it's not considered an emergency medication. So.
Based upon my conversation with legal counsel, we would not ask our nurses nor any of our students, we'd not allow them to carry medical marijuana because of the federal law, without a doubt. Certainly, this issue will likely evolve in the future, and we will work hand in hand with our legal counsel to make sure that we are fully compliant with the law.
And I do know that school nurses in Colorado, they've had medical and recreational marijuana available longer than most other places. Their state legislature has specifically exempted school nurses from the part of their state Nurse Practice Act that says, it says they can administer medical marijuana at school. So they have exempted them from the federal part that's saying you can't violate federal law, basically. So.
We just
To come.
I'm just glad I live in Missouri. How's that?
we discussed this last week in one of my classes because the same thing came up. And what some schools are doing is that a parent can come up and pick up their child, take them off campus, administer marijuana, then bring them back to school. Now that's what they allow in their district. We're not necessarily doing that, are we? We don't know.
I would say that's not my decision, at least not alone.
Okay.
I would not be in favor of that, but I will say that we tell parents now, if they would like to give their child, I don't know, cough syrup or something that we don't have orders to cover, and they haven't provided orders from their physician, they can come up at lunchtime and give their child a dose of Robitussin. So we might need to work on clarifying that as well.
There were several districts have at that.
When I read it, I was concerned about the nurses. That was my first concern. Are we putting nurses at risk with this, or are we helping nurses, or do we know?
You mean allowing parents to administer?
No, just the writing, when it was rewritten, are we putting nurses more at risk, less at risk, we hope, or what?
I think it gives the nurses more protection to be able to say, I'm sorry, I am not
Okay.
allowed to administer that.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't
By
decipher that out.
policy, by law, I cannot administer
Gotcha.
that.
Okay, good,
Parents,
thanks.
of course, can do whatever they want at home.
Yeah,
But,
thanks.
any other questions? Thank you so much.
All right, the motion is to postpone approval of policy 2870, administering medicines to students, until the 10/17/19 Board of Education meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. All right, next we have a presentation, disproportionality presentation. Dr. Lisa Counts is coming up, Glenn Hancock, Dr. Jamie Smith, and Dr. Carmen Harris. Welcome.
Hello, good evening. So I have a whole team of experts here, which I'm excited about. So tonight we are going to update you on significant disproportionality. And the reason that we wanted to bring this to you this evening, part of that is out of requirement through DESE that we update the board publicly on our disproportionate discipline data. So that's number one reason that we are providing this report tonight. Number two, as we were providing this report or updating and planning for this report, we were also referenced with a set of data that came out in our region that you all got a copy of a few weeks ago at a previous board meeting. And so that's some relevant information that just perfectly coincides with the work that we're doing, so we're going to reference that a little bit tonight.
Can you go back to what you said at the
Do we have a
beginning?
clicker?
You're obligated to update the board. I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry.
You go back to what you said. You're obligated to update the board on the significant disproportionality.
Mm-hmm.
So every school district receives this sort of update?
So
Or-
districts that, and Jamie's going to talk a little bit
Okay,
about
okay.
why certain districts are required to update.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yes, so this is just the report I wanted to reference. Again, this is not our data and our report, but I wanted to reference that you all were made aware of this a few weeks ago. We had some community members share this report with you. So I wanted to reference that tonight. This is just one segment of that report that certainly outlines some of the disproportionality that we're going to reference in our up-to-date 2018 data.
Saw that night and I thought, well, that's not good. But those numbers are not percentages. Those numbers there are actually number of students. Is that right?
No, they're not number of students. It's the risk ratio. It's the likelihood of being suspended out of school.
They're not necessarily out of school. I thought it was
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I thought it was a little deceiving
suspension.
the way that other thing was presented.
Yeah, just this slide is just showing the risk of out-of-school suspension. So again, we're not really, I'm not going to go through that report because it's not our research, but I think it's important for us to make note of it because, number one, our community members presented that here a few weeks ago, and our team has since had an opportunity to dig into that a little bit, and like I said, it really intersects with much of the work we're doing here. So I just wanted to highlight that tonight because certainly as we move forward with our future work and looking to improve these gaps, referencing and collaborating with this research will be very important. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jamie Smith, and she is going to answer a little bit to your point, Laura Lee, just a little background of disproportionality requirements through DESE.
I always feel short. So moving to that next slide, you can see that this is work that in Rockwood we have been monitoring discipline data for an extended period of time, but there have been some shifts. A new standard calculation method was established through the United States Department of Education so that from one state to another it was an apples to apples comparison, because previously each state had different ways of calculating things. That did establish a new method in the state of Missouri. We were monitoring discipline, as I noted, for an extended period of time, and there were more than one way to look at discipline data. But the federal component is specific to significant disproportionality in looking at how different groups of students are at risk in comparison to other students for discipline or even identification of disability status. And so the most recent update for this, as it's been a long-term point of consideration for us, was in May of 2019, the district was notified that because of significant disproportionality over an extended period of time, that Dr. Harris will kind of outline, this school year we needed to plan to allocate 15% of our comprehensive coordinated early intervention services from our early childhood funds to be used specifically for plans addressing this concern.
Federal funds?
Yes.
Okay.
We said early childhood funds?
They are, because in this county we have the special school district and partner districts, and because Rockwood is one of the partner districts that has our own in-house early childhood program, we do receive federal funds for that program, and therefore based on how the OSEP guidelines are written, any district's federal funds, you need to spend 15% of those allocations for this targeted concern.
Allocated it childhood to the 50.
Towards this broad concern, which technically is preschool through 12th grade. Our preschool doesn't have discipline, but there are preschools that do, and so it can be used pre-K through 12.
I'm going back to my original question. There are other school districts that are now having to reallocate or allocate money this way?
There are across the state, and so Dr. Harris actually can share regionally who is part of that list, and then it's statewide, so there could be other districts that have funds based on whatever federal dollars they get, both for early childhood as well as their school age K through 12 programs.
What happens if you're
then those funds will be allocated through special school district procedures, and I think special school district is still working through how that 15% allocation will look across the county and the partner districts that are impacted.
That would only be early childhood monies? That would be the whole?
All Part B.
Which, yeah.
Yes, and so that piece has not yet played out completely. So for Rockwood, because we have an early childhood program, we have a set dollar amount and that we are allocating and making plans to utilize, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and how we are planning the way forward as our district framework already is touching this topic, but then we are specifically addressing things through this 15% as well.
Going back to the 15% that were moved to early childhood,
Yes.
my concern then becomes, what are we doing for early childhood if we're moving 15% of that amount away from them?
Our early childhood program, while I'm not intimately involved in that budget, it is sufficient. We will be able to continue to
Not affect any
provide.
kind of
It will not
programming?
negatively impact our programming in any way, shape, or form.
Staffing, everything will remain?
Correct.
It's just 15% of the federal funds, not 15% of the total budget.
Correct. And our federal funds is a, when I say small, but a relative term, but it is only a portion of the full budget that supports our early childhood program, because remember, that is a special education and general ed program together.
We going to commit to the 15% or more?
Because of the way forward, we have other things that the district is allocating resources for to address these concerns, and that was part of our strategic plan prior to this this notification. So this
It's going
is
to be
just
more than that 15% we get from the federal, but it's not coming out of the early childhood. Good.
It is not. No.
That was already allocated through another.
Okay, good.
Thank you for answering all those. Hey, Jamie, thank you for answering all those questions because I know we were peppering you and you.
That's okay. I might live a lot of this.
She has her file folder. She's ready.
Okay, you're next. You ready?
I'm ready. So for significant disproportionality for us in Rockwood, we were identified as being significantly disproportionate in the following areas. Our discipline removals for African American students with disabilities, and also our identification of African American students with intellectual disabilities. This is based on 3 years of consecutive school data from 2015 through 16, 2017 through 18, and then there are 98 possible ways in which we could be disproportionate. For Rockwood, we are disproportionate in 5 of those areas. All of our discipline, in-school suspension greater than 10 days, out-of-school suspension greater than 10 days, out-of-school suspension 10 days or less, and then obviously the identification of students with intellectual disabilities.
You go through that again.
Say that
Certainly.
again.
In-school suspension greater than 10 days, out-of-school suspension greater than 10 days, out-of-school suspension 10 days or less, and identification of students with intellectual disability,
4.
and all discipline.
Okay.
Identification of students with intellectual disabilities, finding students in our African American population who are identified as having a specific cognitive impairment that is an eligibility in the area of impaired, to the identification of intellectual disability.
That defined all discipline.
In all areas, so in school, out of school, etc.
ISS more than 10 days. That has to be a cumulative. We don't give ISS for more than 10 days, do we? We do?
It would be like our long-term ISS, so
Oh,
a
okay.
student who has been suspended and brought back.
Gotcha, okay.
And the next set of slides help to illustrate the beginnings of how it's calculated. At the root of each of the calculations is a rate for 100 students, the rate per 100 students that students are being suspended, whether it's OSS, ISS. And in these examples here, we're using all out-of-school suspension information to help share how the beginnings of this disproportionality numbers are being calculated. The graph here starts with looking at students that are not on an IEP, so our non-disabled students. The years at the bottom represent the end school year. So for example, 2019 would be the 18-19 school year, 2018 would be the 17-18 school year, just to help orientate us to the chart here. And the numbers you see there are available by taking our non-IEP students receiving OSS and dividing it by the total number of IEP students, or I'm sorry, non-IEP students there. So you can see that's the rate at what we're suspending out of school suspensions per 100 students that don't have an IEP. If you move to the next slide, this one starts to share the rate at which we're suspending students with an IEP for every 100 students. And you can see that there is a decline between our 17-18 school year and our 18-19 school year. As Dr. Harris and Dr. Smith and Dr. Counts alluded to, we've been looking at this and monitoring this and working through some different parts that will be discussed with the way forward here in just a moment.
Do you count 17, 18 as an outlier year, or is it just the way it was?
A little bit of an outlier year, but that's part of where we're going down kind of a little bit of the root cause to see why.
When we see that decline between 18 and 19, causal factors, just not that we're not recognizing the students, but we're actually putting strategies and techniques into place to assist the students. Is that right?
Just the students' restorative practices.
Okay.
We've been doing a lot of work in our district around that social emotional learning restorative practices that have helped with that decline.
Not just we're not reporting it.
Correct.
We're doing very positive things to address it.
This is K through 12.
Sir.
Does that signify that we do suspend elementary students for out of school sometimes? Okay, three of you, yeah, you're shaking your head.
Through 12. It's certainly, I don't know the exact number, but it's very, very minimal that we have out-of-school suspensions at the elementary at all.
Good.
Go to the next slide. As Dr. Harris mentioned, the different areas we are recognized for significant disproportionality. This line here represents black students receiving out-of-school suspension, the rate at what we're suspending for every 100 students that are black.
We knew this, though, didn't we? This confirms it.
And then as Dr. Harris also mentioned, one of the areas where, if you can scroll down, Bob, thank you. One of the other areas were mentioned for black students with an IEP receiving OSS at the rate at which we're spending for every 100 students. So again, you can see there are, again, another decrease between our 17-18 school year and our 18-19 school year in here as well.
That's male and female combined, isn't it?
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is per student.
Correct. The data that has been, and the way the risk ratio is calculated is taking one of those groups and dividing it by the other. So for example, if we wanted to see the IEP to non-IEP, it would be dividing, for example, for the 18-19 school year, dividing 5.1 by the 1.9 to get your risk ratio that's being used.
How many African American students do we have now in the district?
That is roughly about 10% of our population.
2,000 plus? Okay. What?
Say 2,100.
Okay.
20,000 students.
200, 2,100.
I'm not a math person.
Around that, you're going to be right around 2,000, correct?
And at some point going to go back to that first slide and just, not the first slide, but the second one that, you know, whoever it was that presented to us that night that talked about these are the numbers that they think we have.
So it's what these numbers are is it's the comparative group with, for example, black males with disability to white girls without a disability. So the comparative group is different than what DESE uses. As I've read this report, this is a very straightforward way of helping to convey. And when you look at DESE's calculations and how they're calculating disproportionality, they use different comparative groups throughout their calculations.
Let's just say the information they gave us is, shall we say, skewed to make it look, or you think it's?
I don't know. I wouldn't say it's skewed. I would say it's a representation of the risk ratio of students being suspended to that of the least likely group being suspended.
You said that 54.5 doesn't represent that 54.5% of African American males with a disability will be suspended. It doesn't say that.
It's the risk.
They're 54.5 times more likely.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Likely to be suspended than a white girl without a disability.
Now I can handle
So
that.
I don't think it's inaccurate. It's just it's a different lens. So I think this is accurate. You know, if you're a white male without a disability, you're 3.1 times more likely to be suspended than a white female without a disability, because that, as Glenn said, is the group that receives the least amount of suspensions, is white female without a disability.
Is that Rockwood data? Or that
It is not Rockwood data. It's Rockwood data presented through this report.
Okay.
That is our data,
Okay.
yes, I'm sorry.
Because when it says RSD info, and then I was getting confused there for a minute, so it is our data.
Falling through the
From
cracks
that lens.
report
Right.
presented Rockwood data.
You have to go back to that lens of, in relationship to the white females with
Correct,
disability.
the risk ratio.
Say that one more time. That's the piece I missed. 54.5 times as likely to be suspended compared to white females without a disability.
Without a disability. So if you look at the blue line, risk of OSS among each group
Now, I see it.
compared to white girls without a disability.
These numbers are degrees of likelihood of being suspended.
It's pretty frightening, though. 54.5 times. Wow.
Can go back, Bob, to, do you have more data?
Those are the
Okay.
last.
Okay, so the last few slides that we wanted to present, certainly, I think it's really important at this point. The data is very informative. It certainly gives us some detailed priorities, not new to us in the fact of, you're right, we've known there have been these gaps. It's really tackling the how do we continue this work. You know, you look at, whether you look at that second slide we just looked at, whether you look at Glenn's slides, you know, even the improvement is a great thing. We're happy about that, but we're not done. That's not where we want to be. We know we have work to do. We're doing that work. That work has to continue. The work, I think, has to continue more systematically. Which is exactly why there's an entire goal area dedicated through the way forward regarding universal equity, opportunity, and access. So what I tried to do here is just encapsulate some of the big picture things that I think point directly to this work. And these are some of the strategies and action steps we have already started to put in place or will be putting in place this year through a whole variety of forums throughout the district. Some of those key learning areas around cultural proficiency and just really making that be the foundation of all good practices. It's not an add-on, but it's really the foundation for all of us to approach teaching and learning from a cultural perspective, and what practices do we utilize that maybe foster this gap, and then what practices can we do that certainly will make a more inclusive school community. So that will be a big part of our work through Rockwood Learning Council and our individual building plans. In addition, each of our schools, each school pre-K through secondary, in their building strategic plan this year has prioritized universal equity, opportunity, and access goals in their individual building plans. And so that too will directly support this work. So not only are we approaching this from a district strategic plan view, but then each building has designed their own building plan that will incorporate goal areas or goal focus areas here.
Before we go on, let me ask you a couple questions.
Sure.
The multi-tiered system, are you talking about PBIS possibly, or tiers 1, 2, and 3?
And MTSS, we presented a report to you a couple of months ago about the differentiated, so it will combine, it's the umbrella, RTI.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the other one was increase enrollment of students from underrepresented populations in advanced coursework. We can conclude from that that students that take advanced coursework are going to be less likely to be suspended.
Correct. We
And
think that students who are highly engaged and motivated and challenged are less likely to
Yeah, I
have
agree with
discipline.
that's good, yeah.
Right, right.
And we saw that at the Rockwood Learning Council meeting, that people were drawing those ahas as they looked at the data. When we looked at AP courses, we looked at ACT scores, and we heard the teachers and our admin staff saying, wow, let's look at this. That was it felt good to hear that awareness being driven by the data.
Even another example of this, one day this week, I lost track what day it was, but all of us here, Shelley, some others participate in a learning and support services team that Shelley facilitates that meeting. And for Denny Rhodes, over gifted instruction, participates in that department meeting as well. And so he shared with us a presentation from committee work happening right now in our district to look at the underrepresentation of minority students in gifted and accelerated programming. So that work is already happening, and it was just so rich of data and practices that we can start implementing right away to start looking at how we're approaching that. So these are some of our action steps. There's many more. You guys are familiar with the way forward, and you know that's full of lots of strategies, but I tried to just glean some of the ones that I think point very directly to this disproportionality topic that we're working on. Bob and I can go to the next slide next. And so then I just, this is just kind of a master list of some of the activities and access points for our professional learning this year. And a few that I wanted to point out to you, some of the things that are happening as we speak. Trauma-informed practices are happening across the district, and that is being presented. We have cohorts, I believe, at all 4 of our high schools. Some of our high schools are on their 2nd and 3rd cohort where, in fact, I'm participating in one at Lafayette High School, and there's about 30 of us, and it's a 6-part series learning about trauma-informed practices. So that's work that's happening all across our district. I reference high schools, but I know our middle schools and elementaries are doing that as well. So how are we supporting students facing trauma? And the interesting thing when you think about trauma, as educators, we're realizing when they talk about adverse childhood events, trauma doesn't necessarily mean what we all thought it might mean. It doesn't have to be a catastrophic event for it to be traumatic. Things like a parent losing a job, parents going through a divorce, moving. I mean, there's lots of things that can set off traumatic responses in children. So for us to be better informed about how to meet those kids' needs.
Is that professional development, the previous slide, is that done strictly for teachers and administrators right now?
Teachers, administrators, counselors. We have, Bob, will you go back a slide for me? This slide are you referencing, Keith?
Yes.
Well, these are action steps through the strategic plan.
Oh,
The next slide? Okay.
maybe the next one back. No, go on down the other way.
There we go.
It had professional development in it. Next one.
That's it.
Oh, well, wait.
So this,
Thing I'm concerned about, are you also plan to do this for staff, which would be secretaries, nurses,
yes.
custodians, cooks, etc.?
Yes. So let me go to slide 10 again, Bob. So access points and delivery models. And so you see we have several different groups listed there. For example, social workers and counselors today started a series on dismantling racism, and that will be expanding through several departments as well. Keith, we're also looking at, Renee Trottier is spearing up a committee for support staff. I know over the summer she did a whole series on cultural proficiency, and I think that was with Cafeteria and child nutrition employees. In fact, she shared the presentation with me, and it was fantastic. So yeah, we're looking at what access points we have to get these topics to all staff members. Some other important work that I think is worth mentioning here. So I mentioned the Dismantling Racism series that just started, actually, I think yesterday, or part 2. Okay, so it just started recently, and right now that's with social workers and counselors, but that will also start in quadrants, and that's part of that allocation that Jamie mentioned. That will be at that 15%. Part of that will be used specifically for this speaker that we had already prepared to come in and work, and we'll just be able to spread that out a little bit more and have more people participate in that. Other work that's happening is considering alternatives to exclusionary practices, meaning looking at ways to consider alternatives besides out-of-school suspension. So I know we've talked about restorative practices. Even that cultural proficiency and that trauma-informed is helping us learn about other things and other ways to intervene in a more positive manner that doesn't exclude a child from access to school. So that's been a focus that we're working on. Primarily 6 through 12, because we know that is where the brunt of our out-of-school suspensions lie. Just yesterday we started a series with our assistant and associate principals, grades 6 through 12. It'll be a 5-part series looking at dismantling racism, but then also looking at specifically at our belief statements around discipline and then how that connects to our practices. And ultimately, we want to get to a place that we look at that. I'm showing my cards that I'll probably be coming back at some point with a pin for us to look at our discipline practices and how those are defined, because we realize that maybe those discipline practices, many of those were defined for an era that was very different than what we're who we're educating now. And so kind of that that industrial model of education, some of those discipline practices have kind of carried over from that. So we want to look at other ways to intervene with students besides excluding them from school. And then just the very last piece I wanted to talk about was Anthony Muhammad is listed up there under culture and climate. He's actually an author and a researcher that several of us have had the opportunity to see numerous times. His most recent book, Overcoming the Achievement Gap Trap, but is really focusing on culture and climate and how to reach all students. And so he is coming to our district in November and, what else, Shelley? November and January through Rockwood Learning Council. And so again, we'll have many people that get to participate in that and join in that learning.
Let us know when that is. Please.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can send you
It
those
is?
dates. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's the Rockwood Learning Council? Or-
It will be an elementary and secondary, yes.
He's not local, is he?
No.
He's not from St. Louis, okay.
So that's all I have. How about any questions?
So I have one. So we talk about African American students and white students. Are we looking at all races to make sure that we don't have any disproportionality between all races across the board then, or are we mainly
I'll
focused
let
on?
Glenn talk about that. We have a discipline dashboard that will actually break down by all races.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, we monitor all of them. The ones we're discussing tonight are the ones that we're on record for the significant disproportionality.
Okay.
What are the different groups besides Caucasian and African American? Asian? Hispanic?
Correct. Asian, Hispanic, multiracial, and Indian.
Okay. Now, here's the big question. This is all wonderful. It's time consuming, but that's okay. How do we as a district, or you as a district, guarantee that every school, all 33 or 34, implement this with fidelity? What kind of safeguards do you have for that?
So as I mentioned, every building has a goal area around this exact topic, specifically around equity and access, specifically around disproportionate data. So each school is held accountable through either Dave Cobb, who supervises elementary, myself, who supervises secondary. In addition, we meet with our principals monthly, and so we're utilizing Glenn's discipline dashboard, and we'll do that as a group. And then at each building, they have access to that data dashboard as well, and so they are able to track and account for where those gaps are and if they're making progress on that.
Do they write a summary report at the end of the year, or once a month, or whatever?
We check in with them, Dave and I check in with them throughout the year, and then of course that's part of our review when they do their growth plan in the start of the year, and then our reviews through our normal evaluation
You'll
process.
know by the end of the year if they're initiating this.
Oh,
with
we'll know
fidelity.
before then.
It'll
for
show
sure.
up.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah.
Anyone read this book, Overcoming the Achievement Gap Trap?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a copy somewhere do you have copies? Because, it gets amazing, huh? Yeah, it gets amazing reviews.
It's really good. It's an
Amazing
easy
reviews.
read, too. I mean, easy in that it's very relatable.
Thank you for this work.
Very important.
That
Good.
Out-of-school suspension and school suspension is done thoughtfully, but the data can give us some ideas how to do better.
It also ties into the goals, Mark's goals.
It does. Huh.
Absolutely. As
Figure
I've
that.
spoken with this wonderful team, I just think as we think about our mission of our entire school district, we do whatever it takes to ensure all students reach their potential. Not some, not most, but all. I think we have a strategic advantage in that we have incredible access to data. It's timely. I know that this report, while it was based upon 15-16 data, our data that we look at for 18-19 confirms that this remains a significant opportunity for improvement for our district, for our students. I think my statement a couple of board meetings ago still stands. I think we've made some progress and still have significant work to do. What we would hope for are trend lines over time that show consistent progress. That would be our goal, that we don't see the ups and downs, but we're implementing strategies and priorities that allow us to make very defined progress. This is an issue that won't be fixed overnight, but we have a wonderful team dedicated to our students, access to data that's timely that we can use to inform our practice. I think we have the people to be able to do this. There won't be any one technical solution that we provide that addresses this issue and eliminates this challenge for us. It remains a challenge. We're going to need to be creative and innovative in our approach. We have a strategic plan that addresses this. I just appreciate the opportunity, the openness, and the transparency with which you have presented this information. We're dedicated to our students without a doubt, and we're dedicated to making these results better so that all of our students reach their potential.
You've been working on this a number of years. This isn't the first time. I know, Glenn, I've seen your system. It is incredible, and it can give principals and so much, and school teams so much information to improve. And so it's
Also, I have to have a good cooperation with SSD. I know SSD is here.
And I would
If you don't get their cooperation, you can't get anything done, or vice versa.
I would like to point out that Joan Zapitsky,
Joan's here.
who is a SSD board member, is here with us tonight as well.
Good day.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us present to you this evening.
Thank you.
All right, next is the proposed agenda for the October 17th, 2019 Board of Education meeting. If you want to pull that up real quick, look at it. Anybody smell popcorn all of a sudden? Is that you?
Huh?
Adjourn. All right, that look good?
We're down 7 to 5.
All right, future agenda presentations and events to attend. Just a reminder, we did talk about this earlier. We're having our rescheduled Board of Education work session Wednesday, October 30th from 11:30 to 4. All right, anything else? All right, adjourn the meeting.